Hi, I'm Kimberly and welcome back to my channel. I'm a licensed professional counselor and a former middle school guidance counselor turned homeschool mom of one. Here in this vlog series, I have talked about the importance of putting on your advocate hat as a parent. Today in this vlog series on advocacy, I'm going to talk about whether or not to disclose and share with you our family's decision about disclosure. To disclose or not to disclose? Do you tell other people that your child has a diagnosis? That is a personal decision.
Stay tuned.
A label is a part of us, but it is not all of us encompassing. We are not, my child has developmental coordination disorder. He is not developmental coordination disorder. There's a huge difference. As parents, it's our natural instinct to protect our children from all forms of harm. Physical, emotional, spiritual, mental. This also includes judgment. Acceptance is a universal human need. And when you are a parent, the desire for the world to love and accept your child is absolutely paramount. Yet we live in a world where this need often goes unmet. So what do? When the world does its best to knock you down, and it will, frequently, you get on your knees so that you can learn how to stand. Stand in your faith. Stand in His love. Stand on His promises. And feel tall in His grace. Before we get to the how and the when, we must first address the if when it comes to whether or not you share your diagnosis with others. Talk it over as a family first, and I mean the immediate family. This includes getting your child's input. After all, disclosure is about them and for them. As much as we wish we could keep them safe and forever, locked in a bubble, safe and close to our chest forever, the reality is babies don't keep. And if we do our job right, then our children will one day leave our home and go out into the world and successfully begin a life of their own away from us. That's just how it's supposed to work. The choice to disclose is deeply personal and one each family must make together after together consideration. Careful consideration. When it comes to the sharing of personal information, I have found a range. Some families prefer to keep the information private, disclosing only and basically only on a strictly need-to-know basis. They keep that information private, such as, to medical or educational professionals only, therapy professionals, they will talk about it with them. Other families fall somewhere in the middle, asking close, they add close family members and friends to the need-to-know list slowly over time. And then finally, there are those who embrace the decision completely and openly, and they're just really transparent about it. While not necessarily flying a flag over their home, they are simply not opposed to speaking freely about the diagnosis. They own their labels, they feel empowered by them, and they feel no need to hide them. So where does my family fall in all of this? We fall somewhere along the middle. After the initial diagnosis, it took me a little bit to process the information, and I kind of kept it to myself in-house, just my husband and I, for the first couple of months. Other than medical professionals who obviously needed to know, because a lot of times you have to get referrals signed off by a pediatrician or family physician so that you can get services. So I slowly over time expanded the knowledge of the diagnosis out to immediate family and close to friends. Very trusted friends, confident friends, I would share that out. And that has nothing to do with shame. That has to do with me, has to do more with fear of my child being rejected. I'll be honest, because you can mess with me all day and I'm fine, but you mess with my kid and you will get a lioness back. I'll play around when it comes to my cub. 2 years post-diagnosis, it took me that long. I found myself advocating for support services for my kindergartner in a small private school. 3 years post-diagnosis, I became a homeschool mom. 6 years on, I launched a homeschooling and advocacy website and blog, followed quickly by a podcast that grew to 2 podcasts, and now this YouTube channel. So my comfort level grew, but when it really started to grow, it sort of took off. Now I wear my advocate hat proud. Having said as you too grow in your knowledge, you too may find yourself inspired to teach other people and to advocate for your child's diagnosis as a whole. Don't be surprised if it happens. What was my family's decision when it comes to advocacy? When it comes to DCD, I am especially passionate about getting the word out. The more I learned, the more I started to recognize that not enough people were aware of this diagnosis, and that I felt I had a duty, I had a responsibility to help families and parents and children who face this diagnosis who did not have the luxuries that we had of being able to afford out-of-pocket care. And especially after I had gone through 2 years of battling insurance companies that ineffectively, they didn't work. I was unable to secure them the funding to pay for services. All I could think of was, what if I didn't have the option to pay out of pocket? What would I do? What would I do? Would I know to do more? I think because of my background in professional counseling, and I've bought with insurance companies before to get paid when I was a clinician in private practice, so I kind of had some insider information of how to go toe-to-toe to fight with them. Still didn't work, but it didn't mean I didn't fight. In many cases, it has worked with other insurance companies for parents who've just had somebody willing to help guide them. There's a lot of tips and tricks that insurance won't tell you, and they don't want you to know because they don't want you to fight. It's a money game at the end of the day. But even in my advocacy, I still protect my son's identity. When I started doing all of this digital content, man, he was on board immediately. He wanted to do everything. He wanted a YouTube channel just like Mommy. Even though I had to try to explain I'm not doing this for profit, I'm doing this to get awareness out, he wanted to be up front, full and center. But that's kind of his personality, and get off his stage. It's just his world. He's out there. But I chose to not feature his face in anything. I keep his identity private. I think for me and my personal experience working too many years in social services, I knew that he was going to get older and he was going to go through a different phase of development once he entered adolescence, the phase he's entering now in his tween years, where he's a little more reticent about wanting to do things for the channel, which is perfectly fine because I don't feature his face in anything. But I didn't want him to regret his decision to be front and center later. When he's older, when he's an adult, if he chooses to feature himself and his own content and show his face, that's perfectly fine when he's an adult. But for now, in our home, and no criticism of anyone on their YouTube channel, if that is what they choose to do, that is perfectly fine. Each family's decision is different and personal and their own. This was my decision for my family's personal reasons. What he chooses to do when he's an adult, entirely his choice. Yet I still chose to create the digital content with where I keep his face kind of hidden from the camera, or I use funny stickers or funny emojis, or I blur it out, because I felt that it was for the greater good to actually do some education and some advocating as opposed to doing nothing at all. And one other caveat, I actually hate being on camera. I hate this part of YouTube so much. I step outside my comfort zone every single time I get in front of this camera. Now, I actually enjoy my podcasts. I really enjoy engaging with the authors and engaging with other members of the community for nonprofit. It feels very natural for me to sit there and have that conversation and talk about the great work that they're doing. For me, I'm uncomfortable being the center of attention, and it feels weird to talk to this little green light or to myself, because I pretty much see myself in the camera. I'm like, okay, there I am talking to myself. But hopefully I create these videos and it benefits the greater good and someone gets some good use out of it. That is the reason I do it. I step outside of my comfort zone with every video I make, but I will continue to do it because it is what God has called me to do, and I hope that you get some benefit out of it. The other reason is because DCD is a really commonly occurring disorder. Statistics say anywhere from 1 in 10 to 1 in 20. Yet very few medical professionals, educational professionals, or even health professionals are familiar with the diagnosis. It's very hard to find intervention services for them. Very few kids are covered, or it's splotchy at best, depending on where you live within the United States or where you live in the world, to get educational resources to support children who attend public schools. It was one of the biggest reasons we chose to homeschool. So I feel that not doing these videos is worse than doing them afraid. so I do them anyway. And in doing them, I have to put a little bit of my life on display, but I choose how much of my life to put on display. If you choose to disclose and you choose to create content like this to help other people, start small. That would be my advice. Begin with your inner circle and work your way out. When you choose to disclose, do the same thing. Start with your inner circle and work your way out as your confidence grows. Family members, grandparents, and close friends are always a good place to start. As your comfort level grows, you may choose to move on to playgroup moms, church friends, and fellow homeschool parents. Granted, I do not mean to imply you should walk around handing out flyers, unless, of course, you are at an education or a medical conference and they're talking about special needs services, or you have the opportunity to appear on a podcast where you can share your experience. I can recommend some really great ones. Sped Homeschool, Challenges Won't Stop Me with Melanie Brown, or Sped Homeschool with Peggy Ployer are two great places to start because they both advocate for overcomers and the special needs homeschool community. That's a good way to start. You can wear your lunchbox sign that way. That would be fine. The bottom line is you have to choose what is the right amount of disclosure for you and for your family, and your child who has the diagnosis should be a part of that discussion. You can throw your hat into the advocacy ring without necessarily showing all your cards. You can do like I do and keep a few close to your chest, and you might be amazed at just how many families you impact. In the meantime, thank you so much for watching, and thank you so much for being a part of my homeschool village. Remember, the days are long, but the years are short. For when you feel the weight of those heavier days, take a deep breath and relax. You're going to get through it. It's only homeschooling. God bless.